Hello everyone. Today let's talk about wines. Wine is an alcoholic drink typically made from fermented grapes. Yeast consumes the sugar in the grapes and convert it to ethanol, carbon dioxide, and heat. Different varieties of grapes and strains of yeast produce different styles of wine or different types of wine. Wines has been produced for thousands of years. Wine is not just a great way to complement a good meal, it's also filled with health benefits, according to many research studies. But what makes this beverage so great? At its core, wine is composed of water, alcohol, aromatic compounds, acids, and tannins. All of these individual elements add something unique to this glass, and then you're enjoying it with the best of its flavor. So let's understand, what do we understand by sweetness, acidity, tannin, alcohol, and body of wine? The sweetness in wine we get from the natural grapes or the sugar leftovers after the fermentation has stopped. Wine people refers to it as residual sugar. For short, wine without sweetness are called as dry wines. Then comes acidity. Acidity refers to the fresh, tart, or sour attributes of wine, which are evaluated in relationship to how well the acidity balances out and the sweetness and bitter compounds of the wine, such as tannins, comes. Three primary acids which are found in wine grapes are tartaric, malic, and citric acids. Then comes tannins. What tannins are? They are essentially a wine pucker power. It is generally more dominant in younger red wines that haven't had the time to soften up with age. A wine with high tannins can be described as bitter and astringent. Tannins are derived from the skins, stems, and seeds of the grapes that are used to produce the wine. Then comes the body. Body describes as the texture or weight of a wine in the mouth. This comes from the combination of elements including alcohol, extract, glycerol, and acid. Full-bodied wines have a rich, complex, well-rounded flavor that lingers in the mouth. Now we need to understand what makes this beverage so very great. Is it just the composition of water, alcohol, aromatic compounds, acids, or tannins? Or is it most important, the grapes? Okay, let's start with grapes. Wine starts with grapes, some even end with grapes, since the yeast needed to convert the grape's sugar to alcohol is frequently found on the skin of each berry. So white grapes make white wines, red grapes make red. Extremely few grapes actually have red flesh, so the color of the grape refers to the skin on the grape. White wines can even be made from red grapes as well as rosé and red wine. Let's talk about the origin of wine, or from where the culture of wine started. The earlier evidences of wine has been found in China in 7000 BC, where it has been considered as a mixture of grape and rice coming together, forming a fermented drink which has been used over ages. The earliest evidences of wine has been found in Georgia from 6000 BC, from Iran in 5000 BC, in Sicily in 4000 BC, and one of the earliest known wineries from 4100 BC is the Arini winery in Armenia. So technically, it has been all around the world, all around the Europe. Now let's understand the factors which are required for cultivation of grapes. As grapes being the primary source from which the wines are being made, it is very important for us to understand from where do we derive the finest of the grapes. So let's understand about Vitis vinifera. Vitis vinifera, what does it mean or how does it sound like? Is it an English word or a French word or a Latin word? I guess you guessed it right, it's a Latin word. So as the name testifies, it is associated since the ancient times with winemaking. Number of natural factors which are responsible for the successful cultivation of a grape wine. which is produced from the fermented juice of the grapes of Vitis vinifera. So this is the type of grapes which helps you get the finest of the wine. Other factors which closely interfere with the type and the taste of the harvesting of grape, which are climate, altitude, and soil. When we are talking about climate, we are talking about the climatic conditions. We are talking about the latitudes and the degrees of the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere of the world, where the wine cultivation or the grape cultivation takes place. Then further we will discuss about the altitudes, the heights. At what heights the type of climate becomes the finest for the harvesting of the right crop. So in most countries, wine thrive at 800 to 1600 feet above the sea level. Vineyards are rarely planted over 2000 feet, but those are exceptions, such as Italy's Alpine Valley or parts of Chile where vines grow on slopes as high as 4,000 feet. So technically this is an exception. All across the world, the general tendency falls between 800 to 1600 feet above the sea level, where the place is considered the finest for the cultivation of the right quality of grapes for the production of wine. Then let's talk about soil. How the soil is very important and how it determines the major characteristics in the quality of wine. How grapes from vineyard in sandy or terrains generally produce lighter, fresher wines to drink, and how the clay soils make wine which are richer in body and better suited to aging. Let's talk about viticulture. Viticulture, of course, this is a Latin word where Latin in viticulture it has certain association with wine and the art of growing. So when we are talking about viticulture, it's basically an art of growing wine, or it's the art of cultivation and harvesting grapes. So it's a branch of horticulture we can talk. While the native territory of Vitis vinifera, the common grape wine, ranges from Western Europe to the Persian shores of Caspian Sea, the wine has demonstrated high levels of adaptability to new environments. Hence, viticulture can be found on every continent except Antarctica, of course, because, of course, the latitude, the atmosphere, the climatic conditions, they are not good for the cultivation of wine. Then let's understand enology. Enology is the science of wine production. So what the viticulture would do, viticulturists will identify the right technique how to grow the right grapes or how to harvest the right grapes. Whereas the enologist will decide or the winemaker will decide the right pattern of producing the wine. So both the enologist and viticulturist come together in the production of finest of the wines. Now let's come together and understand how the wine has been produced all across the world. How viticulture can be defined as the science and the practice of a grape culture. How the species of vitivinifera brought some of the finest wines of the world on table. How these latitudes interfere in the right composition of taste. How the climatic condition interfere in the right atmosphere where the grapes are being harvested and the right aroma of the wine comes. Wine production has a lot to do with the climatic condition, the temperature on which the grapes are being harvested, they are being taken care. How the proper level of humidity also plays very important role in storing wine, which should be around 70%. Although it is perfectly accepted to keep it at 10% above or below the 70% level. If you have too high of a humidity temperature, the labels can easily rot or mold, which can affect the wine's value and of course the taste and flavor. As we spoke in our earlier slide about the history of wine, so let's see more in it. In this slide, we can understand in Mesopotamia, Egyptian culture, Roman culture, Greek culture, even wine is referred to in the Bible. So technically, wine has been all across the ages and cultures around the world. So it has been everywhere. When we are talking about wine in detail, how can we miss the very, very important factor, the health benefits of wine? An alcoholic drink which has the health benefits, though it sounds contrary, but since it is derived directly from the nature, since it is the aroma, its scientific proposition is being derived from the grapes, which is a fruit, and the fermented value has lot of health benefits in it. So we can talk about lot of health benefits of wine, where it directly interferes with our heart health. It helps us look good. It helps us with the better sleep. At times, if taken rightly, it helps to burn fat. And of course, it helps fighting sickness. So is it a medicine? Not really. But since it has been derived from the nature, it can be used as the alcoholic drink. Along with it, it has a lot of health benefits to it. To move further, we would we should try to understand the type of soils which are very much important for the cultivation and the harvesting of right kind of crop to get the right flavor of wine. Primarily four types of soils has been identified all across the globe which helps in the right crop. Sandy soils, clay-based soils, silt soils and loam soils. When we are talking about sandy soils, they helps introducing the elegant wines with high aromatic flavors, pale in color and low tannin flavor in it. Then clay-based soils. When we are talking about clay-based soils, they are not just muscular wines with high extract and colors. It has a lot of health benefits in it. They tend to stay cooler and also retain a lot of water. Then comes the silt soils. Silt soils are smooth and round wines with slightly less acidity. So silt soils retain water and heat. In cooler climatic regions that have sun, the ideal silt soil sites tend to be mixed with a portion of a limestone. So silt soils are very fine grained, which makes growing roots very difficult. And that brings in some of the famous wines which are being bought through silt soils. Then comes loam soils. In loam soils, it is considered to be too fertile unless it's blended. So technically, loam is nearly unequal mix of silt, clay, and sand, as well as an organic matter called humus. Loam is very fertile and typically causes vineyard to be over vigorous. Because of the vigor, most loam soils produce wines that have very little flavor and color. So despite this fact, loam soils offer great potential with wines made from vineyards that have rigorous pruning regimes. Some famous wines from loamy soils are Sonoma Valley and Napa Valley, which produce some of the finest wines in the world. So here do we say sandy soil based wine or clay based soil wines are lesser? Not really. We need to understand sandy soils a bit more. What are sandy soils? They are well drained and they retain heat. In warm climatic conditions, sandy soils make wines that are softer with less color, lighter acidity and tannins. And you have ever had a wine from Scotland or South Africa? You must have seen how pale the wines can be. This is a part of the reason why. In cooler climatic conditions, sandy soils benefit vineyards by retaining heat and draining well to produce highly aromatic wines. Then comes clay soils. They tend to stay cooler and retain a lot of water. So there are several types of clay soils, including a lime-rich clay called calcareous clay, which is said to be even cooler. So some of the famous wines from clay soils are the Ribera del Duero, that's from Spain, and then Rosé Romani, that's from again France, and then Pinot Noir again from France. Why was it important for us to understand the type of soil? Because it actually provides the composition of grapes, the right sugar, the right acid, the right tannin, the right aroma, so that grapes can play very important role in the composition of wine. Phenolic compounds which are there in the soil, which mainly consist of flavonoids, phenolic acid, stableness, they play an important role to give the right color and right flavor to the grapes, which further gives the right color and flavor to the wines. So soil provides the foundation to grapes for wine growth, providing them necessary water and nutrition. Its physical and chemical characteristics play very important role in the structure. These 5 steps, which are very important, which gives you detailed guide for the wine making for everyone and the history how it has been always there, how harvesting, crushing, fermentation, clarification, and aging and bottling, which is again the storage process of a wine, which is very important to give the right flavor to the wine. Let's understand about wine making to start with. As we all know, winemaking has always been there from thousands of years and it must have involved a lot of science in it, not just an art. So technically, it has to be a detailed study. So smallest of mistake in the process can have a major impact on the final product. So technically, we understand all the harvesters around the globe follow certain steps for the right crop. So first comes harvesting. When we're talking about harvesting, that's the first step in making the right wine. It is the grape which contains all the required esters, tannins, and acids that make delicious wine. So the moment the grapes are being picked from the vineyards is what actually determines the sweetness, flavor, and acidity of the wine. So first step in making the wine is always harvesting. Along with the traditional tasting method, harvesting the wines also require a fair bit of a science. So technically it's a combination, I would say. So when we're talking about harvesting in detail, it can be done by hands as well as machines. So a lot of technologies around the globe has been used these days to pick up the finest grapes so that the winery can further use the right bunches for the right kind of flavor. Then comes crushing as the process. Crushing is the process once the grapes are sorted in bunches and they are being destemmed, they are being crushed rightly. Earlier it used to be done by feet, but right now the machines and technologies across the globe are being used so that right flavor and right aroma can be derived out of the crushing process from these grains. Machines have made the process more sanitary, more hygienic, and it has also increased the quality and longevity of the grapes. So technically, we can understand the white wine is being made, then the seeds, solids, and skins are quickly separated from the grape juice to prevent the tannins and colors from leaching in the wine. On the other hand, if the red wine is being made, the seeds, solids, and skins are allowed to stay in contact with the juice to allow the juice to get additional tannins, flavors, and colors. So now do we understand how the white wine and the red wine is being separated? It has been separated with the seeds, solids, and skins. So white wine is comparatively more clearer. Now let's talk about the wine harvesting seasons across the globe, how the winemakers around the world bring the science and the art of bringing some of the finest wines on table. How the harvesting season has a cycle to it, how certain principles they have been used by the winemakers, where they use the right technique and right scientific technique to bring in the best of the table wines or sparkling wines around the globe.
When we are talking about wine harvesting season, it has been divided in August, September, October, November, January, February, March, April. So technically, everywhere we will see that every month has some time to contribute in the wine harvesting. Here in this particular slide, where some of the brands are being talked about, you talk about Shiraz, Merlot, Chenin Blanc, Pinot Gris, Merlot, Syrah, Shiraz, or Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. All these brands shape up on various times of the year. So this has been highlighted in this very calendar where every month harvesting will take place according to a different type of climatic condition, according to a different altitude, according to different technique used by a a particular type of harvester to get the right flavor of grapes, which further helps to obtain the right flavor of wine, which has been used by these particular brands across the globe.